we represent the sellers and servers of online advertising. And not to get too arrogant, but we view ourselves at the center of the digital media universe. And so when you actually go up to our New York headquarters, what you find is that we have people dedicated to every touch point in the digital universe, ranging from data to commerce, audio, video, social, display, and that keeps growing and changing. We have an entire ad technology council dedicated exclusively to understanding and helping facilitate technology in the marketplace for selling and serving advertising. So this is the chart where I would argue I get to just drop the mic and walk out of the room. In 2013, digital internet, we overtook TV. We overtook broadcast and cable in terms of revenue, and that's huge. Those are big numbers, and it's only growing, and that will continue. It's important to start thinking about how we shift those brand dollars to digital and do it in the right way. So why is digital winning? So the average person, just when you look at their typical day, they are doing a lot of things away from traditional media. They're doing it all with their digital, through devices, through static uses, specifically Facebook, email, video, application accessing, couponing. You could go down any host of things that think about yourself, look introspectively, how do you spend your day with your device, and take it times 2, because that's what the person, the generation behind you is doing. So in terms of shifting those brand dollars to digital, one important thing that IAB had to undertake, which was to really look at how we're actually delivering digital, and that includes the ad units. Something that we initiated several years ago was what's called the Rising Stars Project, which was to help to modernize those ad inventory packages, to make things look better, to make the creative better, to make the entire access to the page better. And so we started with display. And you can see in the corner there the good, better, best. We went from kind of those standard banner ads, you know, the things that you saw, the aliens dancing over the mortgage rates, and other kind of terrible, awful, awful advertising that none of you in this room do. We then took that Rising Stars format to mobile and helped create new formats for the device that is really hard, frankly, to create content for. That we're still trying to figure that out in the digital space, but came up with a lot of really unique, interesting ways to take that content over to the user. And then now rolling out digital video, which I'm happy to show you some of the results. And so what this did, this created 70% more new, better ad unit inventory that can capitalize on rich media and move across screen. So we're no longer hostage to one channel, one format, one device. So looking at shifting those brand dollars, thinking about this holistically, where are people today? And mobile is certainly where they are. More than half of U.S. consumers have a smartphone device, and the number that really kind of blew me away when speaking with our senior director of the mobile center up in New York, he threw this up on screen during one of our internal meetings one day, and I looked at it and I said, Joe, that can't be right. Tablets are at 44%. That's ridiculous. I mean, I had no problem calling him out in front of everybody and saying that. And he's like, well, no, Sarah, you're ridiculous. This is a Harris Interactive survey. Stop and think about it. So from 2012 to 2014, we went from 15% to 44%. Well, that also follows the trajectory with a lot more tablets coming to market that are much more affordable. They are at better price points. The same kind of trajectory that smartphone usage took. So after the iPhone was released, then Android devices started coming on the market. Much more affordable, much more accessible, saturates the market. And so we're seeing, I know in another presentation we saw someone else mention, millennials are just skipping the entire acquisition of a computer and moving straight into a tablet. So these are where we need to start looking for and finding the users. So in terms of mobile, it has certainly almost doubled just in the last year, and we expect that the forecasts are to continue on that trajectory. Bear in mind that these numbers do not include, for example, Google does not extrapolate their mobile numbers from their overall forecasts, and so this number is realistically a lot bigger. Looking at that continuing, so the growth in mobile continues, and it's certainly an area where we need to focus. This is just some more statistics. When you combine tablet and smartphone, we're now talking about more than half of media time spent on mobile. And then when we're using mobile, we're not doing it statically. We're not doing it with one thing, not once at a time. So most people, when they're using a device or watching TV, they're doing both at the same time, and vice versa. And this is just a quick overview of what kind of usage we're actually seeing on mobile versus PC. This does not include tablets, so it's a little bit skewed. In some sections, you would see some of those numbers much higher. But we expect maps to be quite significant, right? I mean, that's the #1 use for any smartphone device. But as you start to get down looking at each of these, so you get into weather, music, social networking, sports, newspapers, these have been creeping steadily over the last 2 years, and we expect them to quickly overtake PC in the next couple years. So I'm sure you've seen a lot of pictures like this. And here's why I put this up here. Is anyone familiar with this picture? Our good friends at the New York Times actually donated it to us. These young gentlemen here, can anyone guess what they're doing? Texting each other, playing a game? Okay. They're watching the Super Bowl. What is the #1 advertising TV event all year round? It's the Super Bowl. These guys are watching the Super Bowl, except they're not watching it. They're on their devices. They're doing both at the same time. And this is where we have to find our future audiences. Sorry? There's a TV in front of them. Yep. So one's taking a picture of the screen. Another, my understanding is there was one ad had the QR where you could scan the advertisement on the TV and then play a game on your device. So there's a lot of things taking place here, but these guys are talking about the game. They're not paying attention to the actual TV screen. So when thinking about mobile, one of the biggest challenges we have is not thinking about mobile as just the web, only smaller. I mean, what that has resulted in is just taking us right back to the 1990s with those terrible banner ads. Give AT&T credit for being the first to really take on digital advertising, but we all know that that first banner ad was terrible. And we certainly don't want to recreate that. So what we need to do is think about mobile as a behavior and not as a device and not as the web, only smaller. You need to think about whether your user is at home or are they out of the home. Are they in active mode? Are they moving around? Are they running, listening to music? Or are they passive? Are they sitting back and doing dual screening? Are they moving? Are they not moving? And what kind of emotional state are they in? Attitudinal and emotional state behaviors are going to be really important for the future. I think we saw a lot in the past few presentations about focusing on how you can help your user and make them more inured to your brand. So the other shift in brand dollars is to video. This is one of the fastest growing segments of the digital advertising industry, and it has more than tripled in just the last 5 years. Now, part of this is, of course, access to high-speed broadband and better bandwidth. But when you look at this, one that's particularly interesting is that 6% of all video streaming was with advertising. That's a substantial number, all things considered. And that is growing really rapidly. There is an entire marketplace out there just waiting to happen in video.
What are video ads? Like Netflix?
So let me give you an example. It'll play. So you can see video. It's not just what we would call at the front of a video. So there's traditional video, like you would go on YouTube and watch a video and it starts with an advertisement. But there's also just display, active rich media display that can turn into video, traditional formats you can take through social media, deep linking with video. There's a lot of interesting things taking place, and it's not just traditional YouTube. But I apologize, there's no sound, but it's not relevant to what you're seeing. So what these are actually the most recent suite of the rising stars at IAB, and this was video ad formats. So what you're seeing are I believe it was 6 total that were submitted and 1 in that case. And what you get is a lot of user interaction when you do these various video formats. So being able to take augmented reality to a different level when you incorporate that video element. So mobile and video are kind of the 2 digital brand shifts that we're seeing and actually have a hold on the market now and are rapidly growing. Where we're seeing new trends are, in particular, native is a really hot word around town, but what does native actually mean? And this is a mouthful, but when we're talking about native, we're talking about those paid ads that are so cohesive with the page content, assimilated into the design of the content, and consistent with the platform that you're viewing it on, that the user simply feels it belongs there. So that it is no longer necessarily disruptive, a word we love to use, but more akin to the actual experience and behavior of what the user is doing. So there's a lot of ways that you can incorporate native into your projects. So in-feed units is something that has been highlighted already when you're talking about social networks, for example. If you're on Facebook and you see Lyft says, hey, do you need a car? Contact us at Lyft. Same thing with Twitter, Forbes, et cetera. Promoted listings. So Amazon is a great example of this. How many are Prime members? Exactly. It's a great service. But when you go to check out, sometimes what you'll see when you're looking at a product is, you bought this, you might also like this. And by the way, we don't have it, but you could also get it from a different site. And here's where and how. And so that's an example of promoted, but it's also part of your experience in the web page. Same is true for recommendation widgets. If you're reading, my version of Us Weekly and People Magazine, that kind of guilty pleasure is to read Dear Prudence. So, thank you. So Slate republishes Dear Prudence twice a week, and that's my kind of commute home when I really need to just check my brain out. What you'll find at the end of the article are these kind of other stories recommended for you. So you'll see it sponsored by like Taboola or Discus or Gravity. That's an example of kind of sponsored content relevant to the page, but it's still paid advertising. And then paid search units. So as you can see here with the major search engines, for example, how if you did a search for pizza, how that comes up. There's the paid for that key term, pizza, in addition to the natural generated results. There's also custom, what we call can't be contained advertising. So if you're using Pandora on your desktop, you might notice that the entire page itself is the ad. And that's kind of the concept of can't be contained. And then IB's standard ads also helps with native element units. Now, programmatic is the other kind of hot buzzword that doesn't seem to go away, but no one seems to understand it, particularly highly technical. So when you sit there and you look at it, you're like, oh, media buyers and sellers align organizational processes with automation technology in support of ongoing channel agnostic. What? Shut up. We're just talking about bringing Moneyball logistics to Mad Men business, okay? Take all that crazy jibber jabber out of it and just think about it realistically in that we're looking at data efficiencies for scaling the marketplace. It's not just about remnant, it's actually bringing highly strategic scale to your product. So, and you couldn't do a marketing presentation without a LumaScape, right? So we have one for you. So programmatic is one of the fastest growing sectors, and what we're looking at just in the last year, $2 billion on digital, and we do expect that to grow. Some estimates as near as much as $15 billion by 2017. And you're only going to see this small space here of marketing automation, sales automation, predictive marketing platforms. That's going to keep growing. This is one of the fastest growing sectors of the digital industry. When we did a panel with Winterberry on people who were utilizing programmatic, we asked them, what are the data types that are fundamental to actually using programmatic? What's important to you and what's successful? And interestingly enough, first-party behavioral data came out as number one, third-party number two, and then geolocation. So what we're finding is that there's actually a lot of really interesting firms doing specific, unique things in programmatic just to even location targeting and using that data. So it's just one of those growing areas that you're going to start seeing a lot of tailored, specialized, programmatic, meaning not always automated, not always auction-based, but in some means of creating efficiency for bringing scale. So this is an example of the 4 various types of programmatic you will see in the marketplace now, which can be either auction-based or fixed. It can be reserved or unreserved, open auction, invitation auction. It's quite complicated. And then finally, the most important facet in what we're looking at in terms of trending the future for digital is measurement. And how do we deal with that? How do we get away from these kind of, I think I saw somebody have a chart earlier today with 10 different types of measurement that they were selling for ad units. What we want to do is focus on that cross-stream, that cross-channel, cross-media measurement ability to create the digital GRP. So what IAB did was to really look at how we accomplished that, and this resulted in the Making Measurement Make Sense initiative, which is underway now. And it's a 5-step process. The first step is actually has been executed and is out in the marketplace as of last month, which is to create a viewable impression standard, moving away from the CPM, the click-throughs, et cetera. The next will be to modify that into a GRP to improve the reach and frequency, then moving to classification and taxonomy, creating brand ad performance metrics, finally resulting in brand attitudinal measures. So this is a really important and long-reaching project. This is a timeline. So as I said, last month, the viewable impression went live. You can go to the Media Rating Council, the MRC, to learn more about that. What we expect next will be the advisory notice for display, then video, and then moving into the GRP, which will be expected into January 2015. This entire project is the goal that it will be accomplished and executional by the end of 2015. So finally, I don't have audio. So what this essentially says is you see this lonely man in the cold winter on the beach looking for whatever weird things you find in the sand when you're doing that. And a banner ad comes across the sky. That ad doesn't matter if no one's there to see it. So viewability is a very important part of this measurement and trying to make it all make sense. So that's really a summary of what IAB, where we are headed, what we're seeing in trends in digital. So mobile, video, programmatic, native, and finally really achieving that digital GRP. Thank you.